Hello and welcome to Nigeria Decides Election Special. I'm Juliana Olayinka. We're live, and for the next hour I'm joined by an illustrious panel of experts to discuss and debate the upcoming gubernatorial and state assembly elections that take place on Saturday the 9th of March. As usual, we'll be bringing you the latest news and opinions by speaking to contributors both here and in Nigeria. Joining me today are the political analyst Lagun Akinloye, African Affairs analyst Viswa Nobongwana, Deputy Chairman of the APC UK, Tunde Doherty, and joining us from Lagos is the political analyst Ademola Oshodi. Welcome, guys. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Now, on Saturday, the last phase of the 2019 elections will be concluded with the gubernatorial and State House of Assembly elections. In the just concluded presidential ballot, the APC and its candidate Muhammadu Buhari won in 19 states, while Atiku Abubakar of the PDP triumphed in 17 states, including the Federal Capital Territory. However, as local issues come into play, this result may not necessarily determine the outcome of the state contest. This weekend, the spotlight is likely to be on Lagos. It's the 5th largest economy in Africa and the commercial hub of Nigeria. Now, it's always belonged to the APC in different guises since the country's return to democracy 20 years ago. And for some, therein lies the problem. Could Saturday's election see the end of what has been termed godfatherism across the nation? Now, guys, before I throw to you, especially our APC party man Tunde, let's go to Damola on Skype. Damola, the world has turned away from Nigeria, and now Nigerians in Nigeria are scrambling to make sure Saturday's elections go ahead peacefully. Please compare the atmosphere for this election compared to the presidential.
Thank you for having me. First of all elections or politics is local, so it's still very intense in every state that is contesting. It's not all the 36 states. It's about 29 of them. 7 have, lopsided elections sometime in the tenure of 4 years. So the 29 states that have governorship elections and all the 36 that have state assembly elections, it is still intense. It's intense in each of their localities. In Lagos, where I am, it's extremely, the biggest thing everybody's talking about. And there's a lot of politicking going on and parties. I think it's going to be a very successful process. I think it's going to be peaceful. I think the outcome is going to be quite obvious. Whoever wins.
Well, you look on social media, and a lot of people are saying that these elections are more important than the presidential elections. Why is that?
Well, again, it's closer to the people. The people can choose their House of Assembly members. They can choose their governor. It really comes down to it. A lot of people cannot really relate to who's at the top or the central in Abuja, but they can relate to the governor. They can relate to the assembly member. And a lot of times, these are the people that will, anyways, influence or decide who will be the local government chairman of the council. That election will be coming up in the next 3 years or so. So it is very local and it's very, very intense. I think world attention is away from Nigeria in certain aspects, but there's still a lot of international pressure ensuring that the process is free and fair and ultimately very peaceful. I think that's the biggest concern of the international community. They don't want their money going to smoke. So peace and tranquility is what is really the biggest issue right now.
Okay, we'll talk about, whether there is expected to be violence much later on in the show. Tunde Doherty, you're the Deputy Chairman of the APC UK. Free and fair elections, local elections, it's the kind of the heartbeat of Nigerian politics. Do you see that people are shifting away from the federal states and the way the federal take over politics locally, and are shifting and focusing more on their governors?
Yeah, definitely, like it's been said, politics is from bottom up, the grassroots owns politics, and we will see a different approach in terms of turnout in this Saturday's election, because I know after the presidential election, the grassrooters, the canvassers had gone out to actually sanitize people on the importance of this coming election, especially in Lagos. People had been going all out to try as much as possible to break the apathy of participation that took place in the last election, looking at the fact that Lagos has the highest number of voters and PVC collected. And I believe and I'm sure that come Saturday, the election will not only be peaceful, to be free and fair.
Well, we hope that. And there was an address by President Muhammadu Buhari earlier this week, and we are going to show that clip right now.
Let us not become complacent and fail to vote in the gubernatorial poll. The forthcoming elections are as important for good governance as that of the presidency and the National Assembly. Indeed, governance at the state level is closer to us and should touch our lives more directly. That is why it is vital for us to participate in the choice of who governs us at the state level.
That's President Buhari there addressing the nation. Lagun, he was also sending his condolences to families who lost people in the violence in the national elections there. Why do you think, Lagun, that the world don't really care about the governorship elections when it is just so important to Nigerians?
I think in terms of the global political discourse, the elections at the highest level is always of the key interest of newspapers, politicos, foreign governments. You saw the mammoth interest that the world took in it, and that to me makes complete sense. But when it comes to the local state elections, it is the issues for Nigerians to sort out. Therefore, interest tends to be more domestic.
What would you say are some of the issues?
I would say, as we discussed, I think Lagos is probably the biggest one at the end of the day. Probably the only state in Nigeria that for the past 20 years has been governed by one party and has been overseen by one person in particular. As you've already alluded to, it is the fourth biggest economy in Africa. 20 million people, $140 billion of GDP last year. It is not a joke. You know, therefore, that is one of the key issues. The second one, I think, is whether the PDP can win back more states than they did in 2015, and whether they can actually make a dent in the state elections.
Yes, of course. And we know they have in certain parts of Nigeria. Fawisa, let's talk about grassroots politics. Grassroots politics, and really the gubernatorials is all about that, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you think that is more important than, you know, whoever they decide to be president?
I think at the end of the day, for individual Nigerians, it's their closest encounter with the mechanisms of the politics, you know, taking it away from a theoretical perspective to actually being able to say, okay, 4 years ago I voted for you, I can see in my locality what difference you've made or not made. So in terms of getting their hands in the clay, that's good for the people. But in terms of the bigger picture, and alluding to what Lagun was saying, the world may not be putting a spotlight on these governorships, but is more focused on who runs the show. But I think for Nigerians, who is at the head is less important, because it's the fact that there was less than 2 million of those 20 million people in Lagos that bothered to come out to vote.
Of course, yeah,
speaks
the voter
more
turnout
than
was
anything
awful.
to me as a so-called outsider, but I'm a Pan-African. I see it, but I like the evolution because it's exposing the contradictions we need to deal with. And change is a process, it's not an event. And I don't think in the next 4 years we're going to see that big a difference, except that this election, for me, has been a kind of paradigm shift in waking people up to what do we need to do to make our elections not only representative, but make sense to our lives. Because at the moment, with the number of people that came out, I'm beginning to wonder about the viability of the opinions.
That's a very interesting point, and I want to bring you back into this, Damola, because we spoke on a previous episode of Nigeria Decides about the poor turnout in the presidential vote. And if people are saying that the gubernatorial is more important, do you think we will see more of a voter turnout this weekend?
I believe so. I believe there will be a significant larger turnout because of the intensity of it. I believe also that this election is itself, a testimony, or at least a test for whoever is governing, whatever party has been in charge and everything else. It's no longer, it's less of an ethnic dimension. There's less reason to vote for, maybe Buhari because he's a northerner, or vote for Peter Obi because he's the Southeast Igbo candidate for vice president. It's now really low, and because of that, there should be more interest of in one ethnic group. Therefore, more of a turnout. I think it's going to be quite a notable difference in many states of the Federation.
Tunde, let me ask you this, because of course one of the shocking results that came out of the presidential ballot was Saraki, who was seen, maybe not himself, maybe his family, as a kind of godfather of his state, and he was taking out, he lost his seat. Do you think, alluding to what Vuiswa was saying, is it gives, the electorate a chance to take back control, and there was a paradigm shift? Would there be some surprises in Saturday's election?
Definitely, politics elections are filled with surprises, and the thing is that power belongs to the people, and that has come to play.
In Nigeria?
Yes, it has come to play. You just
mentioned. Heads are shaking here.
You just mentioned Kwara State. Now.
Yes.
I would know where she will always say, oh no. But when you look at politics in Nigeria, because politics is local, you see the decision to change the system or the process lies on the people. Because you see, the Kwara State thing started gradually like a joke. And at the end of the day, it came to reality that this person is no more fit for purpose.
But when you say it belongs in the hands of the people, is that not an issue? And I want to throw this out to the panel, really. With local elections, it's easy to, to go in with bags of rice. We've seen it. We've seen, candidates taking huge bags of rices to certain areas. And, with one bag of rice, you can buy out, 20, 30, 40, maybe even 100 people. Do you think there is, the people really do have a say in local,
I think,
on the local level?
I think from my point of view, if we're discussing about the Saraki issue, it is a well-known fact that due to his behavior against Buhari and his disrespect of the APC and his joining the PDP, the APC and the government put many resources into the
Of course they
Saraki
did, because
project.
he was a PDP and they were the APC.
It was a special project to remove him.
You know that. You was part of it.
No comment. But it is a project. When you put your mind to a situation and you put backing towards it, it came to fruition.
Winning an election is a project for every candidate.
Very true, but we're talking about Saraki, whose mainstay is Kwara State.
Okay.
It takes a lot to displace a king, right? But you can, with federal might, with the right bags of rice. So that begs the second question: is politics a game of the people in which we must enchant them to vote for the candidate, or is it a game of
democracy?
Democracy or influence at the end of the day?
I will differ a little from what Lagos just said. You see, the paradigm, there's a shift in the paradigm, as you mentioned, because of the fact that I just came back from Nigeria. The issue of rice, money, and all of that is gradually dying off.
Oh no!
I'm telling you. I just came back. I participated in the presidential election, and I can tell you that in time past, when election is coming, that's when people want to make money. I tell you that till the last day of the election, people were expecting money. They didn't get nothing. You understand? People, yes, in some areas, some politicians did share this or that, but majority of those that were shared did not guarantee them. Did not guarantee them victory.
You're saying that vote buying
I know a lot of people that lost their
vote buying is a dying trade. Well, we hope so, but I don't think the statistics tell us that. Time for a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We still have a lot more to discuss.
Happy birthday!
Hello and welcome to Nigeria Decides. I'm Mark Edo.
Absolute poverty, 10 miles out of the centre of Lagos, and in the centre it looks like LA, just complete inequality.
Capitalism is very much about grow or die, and it seems to be at any price, including human well-being.
The next level is exciting, it's important. We cannot afford to derail it by going backwards.
We have a relationship with the United Kingdom, so that's why we're here.
It's not tough to be a woman in Rwanda. It's tough to be a person with an opposing voice to the president.
You don't change government policy until you start to change the consciousness of people who automatically take it for granted that it's okay to treat women as second-class citizens.
Do you think we're likely to see a President Michelle Obama?
No. But my fear is that now we're talking about Oprah or Michelle Obama, all these, I mean, someone said The Rock running for president. I'm like, no, that's not what presidency is. It's not a popularity, it's not X Factor.
I think people are generally sick and tired of old white stuffy men, politicians dictating how women wear and what clothes they can wear. And actually, you see it around the world. There's a right-wing demagogue here called Boris Johnson, who used to be London mayor, and he seems to be obsessed with women's clothing. So I think that's the bigger question now. Why are these old, predominantly white politicians so obsessed
middle-aged
with what women are wearing? Why, you know?
As an individual that is thinking about who I should vote for if I'm in Nigeria, if I can't trust the body that is going to ensure my vote is counted for the right person, what's the point?
It is the fact that we live in an era where artificial intelligence has become so advanced that you can be made to say certain things that never came from your mouth.
Doesn't the Nigerian voter, with such an opaque lack of transparency, deserve more than anyone else to see these candidates so I can choose who I'm going to give my vote to? Am I wrong?
I think that was a very eloquent defense of debates. Honestly, I sat here thinking, might I be kind of convinced? And unfortunately, I'm not.
I hope this is not going to be too much of a, a kind of obvious question, but do you see race? When you're walking in Parliament, you do. 110%. Do you feel like a young black?
100%.
Why?
I suppose the term that a lot of academics have used is hypervisible, and I completely understand that, and I do feel it, and I do experience it, and things do need to change.
There's a lot of negative talk around Brexit, and there's a lot of nationalism talk around Brexit, and there's this. I think when it first happened in 2016. I remember that day, it felt completely still.
Getting black people educated to understand that democracy is not the only reason you can have a total democracy, a democracy that is good to celebrate, is when everyone has a stake in it.
That's
then you can represent the multicultural society we claim to have in the UK.
You're right, issues that we normally don't talk about. We have a voice. We're trying to create global product. That wasn't asked in the question.
I think this is where this is exciting.
Hello and welcome back to Nigeria Decides Election Special. I'm Juliana Olayinka, and I'm pleased to welcome back our panel, the political analyst Lagun Akinloye, African Affairs Analyst Viswa Nopongwana, Deputy Chairman of the APC UK Tunde Doherty, and joining us from Lagos is the political broadcast journalist Suleiman Alade. Now, the PDP candidate for Lagos State, Jimmy Agbaje, is seen by many as the underdog in this election. However, he's garnering last-minute support through the patriotism of a former commissioner of the current APC governor, Akinwumi Ambode. Babajide Sanwo-Olu is still seen as the front-runner, but can Agbaje leverage on the crisis and divides that are currently being reported within the APC? Suleiman, how are you? Nice to have you back on the show. One tweeter said, Jimmy Agbaje, a campaign that's dead on arrival. Is that too harsh?
I think it's rather too harsh for anyone to describe that. I think this is the very first time we'll say Jimmy Agbaje has made quite a significant inroad. And it's understandably so because of the initial I think, issue that was in the camp of the APC before that was sorted out. But basically, the APC can't be taken for granted. They still look pretty much good because over the years, from the ACN and now to the APC, they've been able to create a more or less like a tradition of, and create a people that better understand what it is like to govern Lagos State. Just this morning, I saw the former governor of Lagos State, who is also the Minister for Power Works and Housing, on a live show on Television Continent. He was there live with Babajide Sanwo-Olu as well as Femi Hamzat. And not forgetting that these two people had also worked with the very first governor as well as with Babatunde Raji Fashola. So basically, I think all what they were saying was, I think, from the benefit of hindsight, understanding the dynamics of Lagos State and what it takes to govern Lagos State. But for Jimmy Agbaje, I think this is the very first time we have seen him make a little bit of, better, inroad as to campaigns. But I still think that, going into the elections, not trying to predict, but it looks good also for the APC, but they still understand what it is like to be in Lagos politics.
Very quickly, Suleiman, your thoughts on this. There were rumours that Jimmy Agbaje had actually stepped down, or the party had disowned him. Any truth to this?
No, I think that's a rumor, and I'm hoping that Jimmy Agbaje today should be able to come out and, dispel that, because it's not good for his campaign less than 72 hours to the elections. Okay, thank you, Suleiman. We'll be speaking to you much later on in the show. Tunde Doherty, our deputy APC man, you said you was in Nigeria recently. A lot of Nigerians, especially those living in Lagos, they say Babajide Sanwo-Olu is running around town like he's already governor. Suleiman just said recently that they were on air in Nigeria this morning. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Femi Hamzat, his deputy candidate, plus Babatunde Fashola, the once darling of Lagosian politics, all together, all endorsing themselves. You can barely see a campaign slogan of Jimmy Agbaje if you go into Victoria Island and many places like Liz. Has he been given a fair opportunity?
Yes, this is politics, and in politics you give it whatever it takes. You see, Lagosians are not the Lagosians are most literate of all the citizens in Nigeria.
Well, because that's what you'd say.
Because Lagos is a conglomerate of every tribes in Nigeria, and Lagosians. Measuring the quality of governance in the last 20 years, we see a steady, stable economy that has risen. And they will not want anything that will taunt that off, because definitely we must agree that what Lagos is now, if by any chance you bring somebody who is new to the development into the system, it's going to ruin the progress of Lagos. Mark you, everyone that you're talking about has gone through the system. They have a master plan of Lagos and the agenda in place. So when you talk about Jimmy Agbaje, where did Jimmy Agbaje come from? Jimmy Agbaje was in AD, you see, and PDP will always shop for people who are not happy with the system. But in measuring the development in Lagos State, I see the frontrunners of Lagos State, those that have made Lagos what it is today, to rally around and campaign for Sanwo-Olu to take Lagos to greater heights.
Of course, and they're definitely using all of their power, godfatherism. We're not going to say anything controversial. We're going to talk fact here. Yeah. But Lagos and godfatherism, the terms just go hand in hand,
They are one in the same thing, really. We cannot be unaware of the fact that Lagos has a president, prime minister, emperor, whichever term you want to call the individual, in the mold of Bola Tinubu, the former governor. He has, since 2012, put every governor in the country.
Well, some would say democratically picked by APC card holders.
What he has done, he has grown to the level in which he is Lagos. Therefore, from the lowest level of councillor to the highest level of governor, he has a direct say in appointments.
Sanwo-Olu has been quoted as saying that he is going to be his own man as governor.
That is impossible, because I'm very sure the outgoing governor, Akinwumi Ambode, attempted to be his own somebody. And for the first time in history, he couldn't even make a second term due to his rivalry with the governor and with Tinubu, and not towing the party line. Therefore, we must all come to an accordance that in terms of the APC, in terms of chances within the APC, that those nominated by Bola Tinubu are the ones most likely to become governor.
One thing, a lot of people will agree with you, but one thing I will say is that Akinbode has now publicly endorsed Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and so has Fashola, because this morning they're sitting together live on TV. Let me bring Viswa into this discussion. Viswa, you know, Tunde said that, you know, the APC, they know where they're going, it's progressive. If we give it to somebody else, we potentially could go backward. It's that democracy is about that.
That's not progressive thinking from my point of view, because better the devil, we know, isn't a solution that's looking long term. It's okay, let's keep everything status quo and we know where we stand. But the younger generation that's going to inherit the fruits of all this activity are now saying, excuse me, we can see where this is going. And there's even an element of despair, perhaps, that Lagoon was alluding to, that if you don't follow the feudal timeline of hierarchy, you're going to get nowhere. So that's the kind of debate I like to see happening more among Nigerians, to question the assumptions, because otherwise cynicism will continue to dominate. And so in the next 4 years, what if only 10% come out to vote? How legitimate will those elections be?
Lagoon, before you jump on it again, are we being fair on ourselves, you know, because sometimes we can be very harsh, especially when we're sitting in the diaspora. It's very easy to point fingers at what's going on back home. If you look at clans, we've seen it everywhere, especially in America, those dynasties of families, the Clintons, the Kennedys. Let's hand over to the party man.
Let me say this for a fact. Whether we like it or not, we have a party. We have a progressive democratic party. 20 years ago, when Abdul Salam lifted ban on politics in Nigeria, the first political party, because I was lucky, I attended the first meeting of congregation of politicians then at Sheraton Hotel. The first party all of them congregated on was PDP. 5 days later, there were dissenting voices that, that idea is not my own idea, that idea is not my own idea. Then AD fell in. Thereafter, it comes to a level where we are now polarizing it with culture, tradition, and tribe. Abga came in, and so on and so forth. Now, in any political institution, there must be a figure. There must be an ideology. There must be what you believe in. What you believe in is what you are going to queue on, is what is going to propel you, is what is going to make you. So in the issue of Lagos State have been propelled by the national leader, Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu, who I will give credit to, because when people talk, they are forgotten that when Asiwaju Tinubu was governor, there were other 36 governors in Nigeria. So where are those governors today? So
it's a valid point.
There's something that Asiwaju is doing that those people don't really realize.
It's a valid point. Last words of we.
When the whole system is dependent on personalities more than policies, that's where we have a problem. And that's why I'm looking forward for any sign that shows this the seeds of this paradigm growing. And I see it among younger people.
And we're likely to see it come, given the results after this weekend's ballot. Time for another quick break. So please join us in a moment when we return on Nigeria Decides Election Special.
Happy birthday!
Welcome to Turn Up.
Welcome to Fizzy.
Let's just quickly talk about Meghan Markle.
Okay, first of all, Piers Morgan, no one asked you.
I'm just so disappointed that we have not had a prime minister like you, Jocelyn.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Tiwa Savage on Yanga TV. Don't move.
I have to show more love to the London G's, you know what I mean?
so happy today. Look, my eldest son, he's been granted visa. He's coming to London today.
I'm getting married. Do you have any cutlery?
How delightful to see you.
I only wish I shared the same fate.
Oh, now, Mali has given up all hope of victory.
Our great nation, Nigeria, will be independent in 2 weeks.
Media model.
What is wrong with her? Women!
Mom, where can I need a bigger place?
Do I look like the Queen of England?
At boss. The A is violent.
Cheers.
To recognize Bilona, we will see Bilona.
Don't watch Felix. Leave me alone. Ow!
Where is my phone?
If you wanted your daughter to go for the program, she should have done better than my son.
I expect to be told if I'm going to be running into strange shirtless men on my lawn.
That is my half of the lawn.
You are getting married? Oh my wow! Look at you, fine girl!
He proposed by accident?
What is your handiwork? Business.
No, I don't have a boyfriend. And no, I'm not going to kill myself. I am freaking fine.
Delta!
Are you an angel?
Jehovah! Who are you and how did you get in here?
You can see me. You can hear me.
What kind of madman is this in my room again?
Please, how many hours do Nnamdi Azikiwe waiting? Owerri? Yes. This flight is for Abuja.
That was kind of cute.
When you say kind of cute,
it's about to go down.
Hello and welcome back to Nigeria Decides Election Special. I'm Juliana Olayinka and I'm pleased to welcome back our panel. The political analyst Lagun Akinloye, African Affairs analyst Viswa Nogbongwana, and the Deputy Chairman of the APC UK, Tunde Doherty. Back in December, I sat down with Dr. Femi Hamzat, the APC pick for the position of Deputy Governor in Lagos State. I started by asking him about Lagos's potential as a 21st century city. Dr. Femi, I do have to ask, because I know all our viewers are hoping that Lagos can one day be a city of dreams. What would that city look like?
Well, we've always said that we want it to be a model megacity. So in terms of health, build hospital where people have good access, be able to improve on it. And then in terms of education, have great schools where people can go ahead. Now, the most important for us is make it easier for businesses to operate, because that's the only way we can grow the basket. And then that's how the tax revenue of even the state can improve. So the essence is we must be able to build infrastructure, great roads, bridges, connect communities, be able to do water, where every house will be connected to water. And you know, I know it's a challenge, but it's part of the target. That's one of the things we want to do. Have technology where there will be, the last mile will be easy for the telcos to do. So part of the idea is to make it easier for businesses to operate. Now we need help but through the federal government. But it's easier now to collaborate with them, and because the people there seems to understand what they are doing. So they are giving us access. They are helping us with the discourse in terms of power to identify. In fact, part of the things that we will be discussing is differential treatment between Lagos and other parts of Nigeria because of the statistics.
We have that in London.
Exactly. So we need to convince our senators, our members of our rep from other states to understand the significance of Lagos to the peace and regulation of Nigeria. And that's the challenge that we face. But we must get it done. We go with statistics, with data to let them understand how important Lagos is. And we are not saying other cities are not important. Every city is important in Nigeria. But in air traffic, we are responsible for about 80% of air traffic in Nigeria. 68% of banking transactions take place in Lagos. So because of all this data, people will come. People come from all. In fact, there is a data that shows that 7 out of 10 graduates in Nigeria will come to Lagos. So because of that, it's a conglomeration of people, Yorubas, Igbos, Hausas, and everybody must be able to live in peace and be able to do their business. That is the hope for Lagos. And by God's grace, that's what we will deliver.
Okay. Finally, are you aware of the narrative? Are you aware of the narrative the negative narrative of Nigeria, of Lagos, outside of the continent. When you're in Lagos, it can be a bubble. You know, you're in the traffic, you're hustling and bustling. But are you aware that there are so many walls that need to be broken down? And how can we get the international community to have faith in us again?
But, you know, look, the question is, how do you get your news? The reality is that every time, when we are going back to Nigeria now from London, most of the time you see white people on the plane. They are going there to do business. They are not listening. Let me give you a story. When ShopRite was to come to Nigeria, ShopRite was to come to Lagos, the MD told us, I can't do business here, because he saw people hawking on the street. I said, I'm competing with this woman here, because a bottle of Coca-Cola is a bottle of Coca-Cola. We said, what about volume? Now, they came in, not only have they opened more stores in Lagos, they were able to break even in 2 years. So the rate of return in Lagos, it's unprecedented. And that is the story all over the place. So the reality is, people listen to negative news, but most of the time it's not true. When you know that Vodafone was the biggest in South Africa, bigger than MTN. When the opportunity came, Vodafone saw the problem, MTN saw the opportunity in Lagos. Now, MTN is the biggest in South Africa because of Lagos, because of Nigeria. So the reality is that opportunities are in Lagos, but if you see, we see it as opportunity, others see it as challenges, and they see it as problem. For us, for every problem, there's also the opportunity. So we will focus on the opportunities and market Lagos better. Let people understand what is happening. We don't want people to define us. We will define ourselves.
Okay, again, we're in London. You studied abroad. What lessons have you learned from being here? And why are you here? What's so important about the diaspora?
No, but if you look at it, we have a relationship with the United Kingdom. The reality is they are the colonial master. They left in 1960. There are enormous amount of Nigerians here. Enormous amount.
Yes.
Exactly. So you are one. So that's why we're here, to see our Nigerian brothers and sisters, so that they can influence, they can listen to us, understand what we plan for Lagos State, and influence people back home to say, oh, we've listened to them. Because what you see, you are able to evaluate. So the people in diaspora will be able to evaluate us, evaluate what our program, ask questions, so that they know that we are genuine and legitimate, and not some on social media, but they are able to see us live. So that's why we're here, to convince our Nigerian brothers and sisters, so that they can actually also help us disseminate that information back home.
Of course, I know they recently swore in this diaspora commission, so they can really tap into the diaspora. It's important, is it not, to tap into the wealth, the riches, the rule of law, everything that we've learned in the West, so you can take it back home, but you're not doing it.
We are. The reality is we are. And look, all politics are local though. You can have international view, but you must find a way to localize it.
Of course.
Because the reality is we have our culture, we have our beliefs, we have so many things. And therefore, it's not just to transplant things, and it might not work. So we must have a local content. And that's exactly a lot of things.
And money, $22 billion annually. That's how much we are sending back home.
It is a lot of money.
It's a lot. I'm sure it's more than foreign aid.
No, of course.
Yes.
And the question is, we need to get it to 30, but it must then be channelized in a better way. Okay, the quantum is big, but we must be able to channelize it so that at least we are able to use it to build the infrastructural base of our country. And that's one of the reasons why and then to increase it to 30 billion.
Okay, so that was my interview with Dr. Femi Hamzat, the deputy candidate for APC in the Lagos gubernatorial elections. I must say, he was a very charismatic figure. He at the last minute, at the 11th hour, he pulled out for Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Some say he should have been the governor candidate. He's kind of like an Osibanjo Buhari. That's kind of their relationship. I would say so. But, listening to what he had to say and the troubles and the complexities of Lagos, 7 out of 10 graduates coming to Lagos for a job, it being the economic hub of Nigeria, yet it being the smallest in terms of actual size. Governing these complex states and societies are very difficult, aren't they?
Very, very challenging. And I think it's a golden opportunity if maybe the contradictions will force people to ask their questions, but I hope it doesn't come that way. I hope it comes during a peaceful time when we start questioning the very basis of how we organize ourselves, rooted in our own African focus and interest. And I think that will happen in most likely within Nigeria in a place like Lagos because of that, you know, multiplicity of interests and tribal groupings coming together. Diversity is the key for progress. So I love the fact that Lagos has that diversity. That's why, despite the cynicism some may feel, and I'm one of them, I still maintain optimism because I see such intellectually proficient individuals, entrepreneurs like no other on this planet, but not being given or having not had the opportunity to create the right environment to grow. And part of it, the last stage for me, is the kind of thing the founding fathers were talking about, which is that mindset. Are you for Nigeria or are you just for yourself? That's what's missing.
That's an important point. Tunde, let me ask you, the partnership, the double team, the double act between Hamzat and Babajide Sanwo-Olu has been like no other. If you look at the other states, and we will after the break, it's kind of like the one man. But Babajide Sanwo-Olu, you can't look left or right and not see Hamzat. When he came to London, it was supposed to be BOS that came, it was Hamzat, and you know, people were amazed by him.
That is the next level of uploading. That's what I say, because you see, you give that to the leadership of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because he was able to identify resources. All these resources have worked with him. He gives them opportunity. He's the transformer. And no matter what anybody says, Lagos State has transformed. Lagos State is the only state in Nigeria that is paying well, even paying the civil servants, even more than the federal government. Lagos State has never reneged in not fulfilling their financial responsibility to the state. You understand? Lagos is a complex state. And you see, in Lagos State, I remember when Asiwaju Tinubu was the governor of Lagos State, he made an Igbo man commissioner for budget and planning in person of Bernard Kabwe. Yes. You can't see that. So the foundation of Lagos that has been laid by Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu is something that we should give him kudos for. So people you see now that are emerging as leaders in Lagos State, they are people that are taking Lagos to the next level.
Of course, you can't deny. One thing a lot of people won't deny is that Tinubu has definitely brought up many people underneath him, which is a problem we have in Africa. Let me bring Lagun into this. Let's actually talk about the policies now and some of the things that Hamzat was saying. Again, you know, I interviewed him. I spent some time with him. Very charming, very charismatic. You'll be like, yes, yes, I believe you. Why does it not trickle down? We have a lot of, because I would say he's fairly young. He's probably in his 50s, I think. I'm sure my producer will check that. But a lot of these governors are fairly young and they are charismatic. They have been to the right schools. They do have the right track mind. Why does it not trickle down? What's missing between them saying I'm going to do this and the people actually receiving the benefits?
I think our political environment is an extremely complex one, in which, first of all, as Nigerians, we are great orators and we are great thinkers. And as you said, there's a dichotomy between thinking and implementation. Now, implementation is much more harder due to the fact that you have a godfather to offset in many cases, somebody who put you there or somebody who you are reliant on. Therefore, a larger time than usual is spent appeasing one's godfather. Therefore, diverts your attention to the actual job at hand, which is governance, right? And once governance gets there, then you have the party faithful, you have the ones you depend on, and you know there are only 24 hours in a day, and it's only 4 years in one term. So by the time you get to your position and you want to sit down and do things, your chair is spun around. Therefore, your opinions and your policies and your ideas
get lost,
splintered away.
We're going to go to a break, but I want to leave the last answer with you. What can we expect from Lagos? We're going to move on to other states later. What would we want to see? Because Tunde is right. A lot of people would say Lagos has changed. It has moved forward. But what could it be like?
I mean, no one can deny the progress, and in fact, we mustn't, but like Mr. Buhari said, we mustn't be complacent. But how that translates is a matter of what you define as complacent and how comfortable you are in your own position. But I think just by looking at the logic of how history evolves, I look to see the paradigm changes coming from places like Lagos, where people even start to question, excuse me, what is the foundation upon which we are building this? Because the frustration you expressed about the enthusiasm of the policy never translating into practical application. Once we get fed up enough of that, then we'll start having those discussions that people like Kwame Nkrumah and the founding fathers Awolowo were talking about 50 years ago.
Hey, I was waiting for that. We've got to take another break now. But join us in a few moments as we still have a lot more to discuss.
Happy birthday!
Hello and welcome to Nigeria Decides. I'm Mark Edo.
Absolute poverty, 10 miles out of the centre of Lagos, and in the centre it looks like LA, just complete inequality.
Capitalism is very much about grow or die, and it seems to be at any price, including human well-being.
The next level is exciting, it's important. We cannot afford to derail it by going backwards.
We have a relationship with the United Kingdom, so that's why we're here.
Hello and welcome back to Nigeria Decides Election Special. I'm Juliana Olayinka and I'm pleased to welcome back our panel. The political analyst Lagun Akinloye, African Affairs analyst Fiswa Nopongwana, Deputy Chairman of the APC UK Tunde Doherty, and still with us via Skype from Lagos is the political journalist and commentator Suleiman Alade. Now, the suspension of APC governors Rochas Okorocha of Imo State and Ibukunle Amosun of Ogun State has highlighted an internal crisis within the party. Both men are outwardly campaigning for candidates that belong to other parties, meaning Ogun and Imo are seen by many as decisive battlegrounds in this weekend's election. Meanwhile, the contests in Rivers and Kano will likely be walkovers for incumbent governors Nyesom Wike and Abdullahi Ganduje, as controversially both APC and PDP challengers respectively have been barred due to electoral irregularities. And of course the list goes on and on and on. Apart from the 7 states that because of a legal condition can't vote, everybody will be voting this weekend. Let me come to you first, Suleiman. Now, in 2016, 90% of Senate contests and 74% of the gubernatorial elections were won by the party that also carried the presidential vote. Are we going to see similarities this weekend?
Well, I think from what we saw in the last election, February 23rd election, it might not be the case, knowing full well that is why a lot of people and even in the international community will say this election is one of the best. Because votes counted. We saw incumbents losing elections, and that's never happened in the history of Nigeria. So going into this election, I'm also certain that we're likely to see some upsets. You mentioned Kano State and you mentioned Rivers State. Those 2 states, I'll say the governors are in big luck. Especially in Kano State, knowing the controversy about a certain video that went out, that was trending at that point in time. Now he doesn't have a contender, or less a very big contender, so it's a good thing for him. Coming to Rivers State, that's another one for the PDP, and a very big force to reckon with in the PDP. Nyesom Wike is another good one for him. But again, looking at the dynamics that will play out in different other states like Imo and Ogun State, it will be very difficult and very hard to predict who will ultimately become winners. But again, as the parties have said, looking at the history in Nigeria, we'll say these 2 people truly have done what politicians call anti-party activity. You don't hold a party card and also support another party to run an election in the state. So what those two have done is truly what a lot of people are still trying to understand for, students of politics. So for Saturday's election in Nigeria, and I'm quite sure some, states will get the biggest shock. Some will be won by maybe, for instance, there is a state, for instance, Zamfara State. We have to talk about Zamfara. That used to be, they were in court for a long time until just recently before they got the all green to go into this election. It seemed that the APC is making a big inroad in that state, which is a PDP state. So what will happen on Saturday, I think, will ultimately tell people that Nigerians have really come out of the woods. They are getting interested in what and who rules or governs their state. So it doesn't really have to be with the bandwagon effect of who is the president. Automatically, that magic wand will now affect what voters will do on the day of election. So I think, Juliana, it's a wait-and-see game.
I'm telling you, what a mouthful, Suleiman. I'm just listening. I'm taking all the notes. That was a really good, comprehensive analysis for us. I've got to ask about the Southwest states. We have Ekiti, Ogun. Keep going, Tunde. Go for me. Ondo. We have. Look, there are three Southwest states voting now. How likely are they going to go to the APC? Can the APC hold 6 Southwest states?
I think they will. Don't forget what we saw for instance, in your state. If you look at the man who was supposed to be the candidate in the senatorial election that Ajimobi lost, he got about 30-something thousand. So if you had put that number of votes onto what Ajimobi got, meaning if they had one house going into that election, they would have actually won that seat. So they have come together before the Saturday election to mend fences. So I'm quite sure, just like a lot of people have noticed now, they have pulled the house together, and I'm quite sure in Ogun State, in Oyo State, the APC will likely win that election. But coming to Ogun State, because the present governor hasn't actually shown that he's been able to mend fences, and the state hasn't actually done that. If we're not careful, it just might go to a dark horse, someone no one is actually looking at the moment.
Suleiman, thank you so much for your contributions. Let me quickly bring it back into the studio. Tunde, we have to talk about your party members in Ogun and Imo, because really that is where the battleground is. Both Rochas and Ibukunle are campaigning outwardly for people that are not members of the APC. We saw horrific violence that almost injured the president in Ogun during their presidential campaign rally. The chief of army staff has put out a warning saying to people that there are bomb threats, there are plots, people should be careful. We've been seeing people fleeing on social media in their droves to stay away from Saturday. Could this outright anti-party action cause violence?
You see, it's just unfortunate that such an incident has happened, and you will see that the action of the party now is tending towards rebuilding the party, really giving the party an ideology. You see, because of the mergers that took place that gave birth to APC, there are some things that you cannot just do away with, and those are the things, the antecedent that is showing now that some political leaders, that some political office holders believe they are more powerful, they are supernormal than the polity itself. You know, it's highly disrespectful and highly discouraging for a party, for a man who holds an ace of a party to start campaigning for somebody else from another party. No matter what, the life is about give and takes. You both enjoy your 80 years as governors. You both enjoy that patronage of the party. And I think that somebody else. Yes, you should be proud to build the party and work with the whole body policy of the party, and not being dissensive in terms of saying, no, I want to show that I'm more powerful than this. At the end of the day, if you lose out, If you lose out, that means you are nobody.
And of course,
you know,
and what Suleiman was saying there is it has the potential to have the third force win, and it not go to either of the candidates that you know are wanted and vied for. Let me ask you,
but let me just tell you, in case of Ogun State, there's no third force because PDP has equally the same serious problem because there are two candidates in PDP claiming to go to be engaged in this election. So I know for sure that APC will win Ogun State on Saturday because a lot of things are happening. There are a lot of dialogues going on. There are a lot of settlements.
You hope they win. You hope they win.
I know that.
You know that they will win.
Like,
what about some other states? What are some interesting states that you're looking at that you think could be decisive?
I'm thinking the issue with Rivers is quite a big one, and the inability of the APC to field the candidates. Obviously, Rivers is quite huge in terms of it being the petrochemical oil hub of the country, and just how important it is. One of the APC's big player wrote to me, I'm actually the Minister of Transport, is from there, former governor, and it seems to be a walkover. In terms of River State, obviously we discussed Lagos. Kano is the spiritual and economic hub of the north.
Yes.
To remain within the APC fold would be a big win for them in terms of population, in terms for manoeuvring for the next elections, in terms of the hegemony over state. If you have Lagos and you have Kano, you have Nigeria. Therefore, that is why it is a very interesting state as well. Yeah. In the southeast, I would say, I mean, Imo is always interesting, but that goes back to the issue of internal democracy, right? And I think that the APC, when they conducted their primaries in 2018 to choose these governors, ended up being fractured. Supposedly people came to bring money to bribe the chairman. I'm not here to say hearsay or rumors.
You and these controversial statements.
No. But all I'm saying is that the fallout of the primaries.
Yes, of course.
Were that many governors on behalf of the APC who were there became upset at the MO of the primaries.
Let me bring in my Pan-Africanist
This is a very
sister.
real, visceral example of the problem of the personal being involved in politics. It comes down to just sheer petty, immature behavior, which is what we fear may manifest and actually compromise the whole democratic process that we talk about with such pride. But if you live in one of those states and you are seeing these petty political dynamics, not to do with any policy or the well-being of the individual person. If you see that and then you think, as you are, oh, I know who will win. The cynicism that I fear the most, because that's the worst emotion when you get involved in politics. If you walk in there cynically, the nation will die. And I'm afraid that, okay, let me say something positive.
I'm listening with an open ear.
The positive aspect of this is that before you can build, it has to crash. And I hope it crashes in a way for some people that it wakes up people on a local level to say, how do we break this cycle of ping pong between these rich people?
Is that a fair point? Is that a fair point?
I mean, what else will make it change?
Let me drive you back to
we can't go back.
1979.
Wow.
I was a youth leader in UPN, and I remember then in Ondo State, where I was a youth leader for my ward, and I remember when NPN knowingly rigged the election for Omobori Owo against Ajasin.
Yeah.
And you see the aftermath of that. I lost friends. We lost a lot of people. We see people came out ferociously.
That 1979 Act, bring it to 2019.
Now things has changed from then to now. You know, then we have those ideological leaders, Awolowo.
Yeah,
you understand?
That's
and
right.
When what they believe in is given to people, social welfareism. But now things has changed. But that's what I'm saying, that even this time around, the politics of Nigeria is, if you spend the money, if people don't like you, you won't win. It has started to happen.
Right. Let me ask.
You understand? People are beginning to realize that they have that power.
Let me ask this question: are we going to see a bigger voter turnout? I asked Amola earlier in the show.
Yes, we are going to. Let us wait till Saturday. But I know a lot of people are going to come out and vote because sensitization is all going there. There is a lot of the apathy of that Saturday. The last one. I would say, tactically, the change of date affects
Okay, okay, that's it. I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time on this edition of Nigeria Decides Election Special. All that remains is for me to thank my panel, Lagun Akinloye, Vuiswa Nobongwana, Tunde Doherty, and of course our guests on Skype, Ademola and Suleiman. Don't forget to follow us at RealJHUK on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. From me and the entire team in London, goodbye and thank you for watching Nigeria Decides.